A lot of people are going to scoff at this idea 7-foot giants came and helped the ancient Egyptians build the pyramids.
Two experts on opposite sides of the debate go head to head.
Where's the evidence that happened?
My ideas, I think, are probably more bizarre than most people's.
So, without further ado...
OK, Andrew, let's go. First question. You ready for this?
I am, sir, yes.
What ancient structure is the most difficult to explain?
I think it's got to be the Great Pyramid, hasn't it, really, in Egypt. How did it get there? Is it just by chance? Is it by ancient aliens? Or was the architect just a very clever man?
This one I am more sceptical. Don't you think a lot of these numbers that get thrown around about the pyramid and its relationship to the dimensions of the Earth, that's just what a pyramid has as its underlying numbers. I mean, any pyramid has those numbers. So, you know, where's the magic, really?
Why is all this complicated mathematics and geometry involved with it, which is unquestionably there, unless it is to synchronise with the cosmos as a whole? So let's see what the next question brings to us. Who built the pyramids of Giza?
I know your theory has been characterised as swan-worshipping giants who helped the ancient Egyptians, but you know, you must accept that a lot of people are going to scoff at this idea. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would respond to that by saying that we have just discovered 500,000-year-old timbers in Zambia that were created by a distant cousin of ours by the name of Homo heidelbergensis. And this is a really sophisticated wooden structure. And that permits us enough time to roll forward to the Pyramid Age to suggest that sophistication comes out in the construction of this extraordinary monument. But as to who built it, I personally believe that it was the pharaoh Khufu and his architect.
Oh, we can agree there.
We can, yeah.
Is there a mystery surrounding the purpose of the pyramids?
Yes, there is, because most people do not accept the conventional idea that it was created as a tomb.
I'm not a supporter of the Nikola Tesla argument that they were power generators, that they were the kind of aquifer underneath was generating sound waves, and this was beaming electricity to the obelisks and the temples and so on. I just can't see that at all, can't accept it.
But why?
Just think it's too far-fetched. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I understand that the use of the materials, you know, the granite with quartz and so on, is certainly a compelling argument. The fact that Nikola Tesla, who was a genius in all other regards, comes up with this argument is interesting. But in the same way that other great scientists like Isaac Newton had great ideas, they also had some pretty duff ones. And I just don't see, it just defies my credulity. Maybe it's a lack of imagination on my part, but I don't see the pyramid as a generator.
We'll see what comes up next. Is there any doubt about the time period they were built?
I'd accept the 2600 BC timing of it. I'm not convinced by the 10,000.
I do as well. However, and there is a however, there is in ancient Egyptian mythology the idea that there was a first time, a term that's used, which is Zet Tepi, the time of the gods. So what's going on here? Is this suggesting that there was some kind of cataclysm that caused maybe the earliest temples and structures in Egypt to be destroyed and maybe much later replaced? In other words, underneath the plateau at Giza is evidence of a much older elder culture.
Now, of course, I know the counter-argument there is, well, show us the evidence. But, of course, the argument is that such a cataclysm wiped out the evidence. So there's a kind of circular argument here. I mean, the one thing that I would say is that obviously modern archaeology has scanned the area, and I'm sure that the Egyptian antiquities folk will have a more, shall we say, sceptical view of this, and that there are many archaeologists who say these are either natural formations or there were practical uses for them. There's also kind of, I guess, a kind of so what argument that yes, there may have been underground chambers, but you know, the Egyptians loved to burrow and create tunnels, and they may have had a practical use, they may have had a religious function, but the idea that they have some sort of Atlantean wisdom or the grave of Hermes is just too far-fetched. Let's find out where we're going next. Right up your street, but I'll give it a first go. How was the alignment of the three pyramids achieved? Well, so I know one of the most popular theories is that they correspond to Orion's belt. Problem, as we know, is that that kind of works for two of the pyramids, but not for the third one, because the constellation veers northwards and the pyramid veers southwards, or it's the other way around. You've addressed that by referring to the constellation of Cygnus as being the alignment. I guess there are various criticisms of that. Did the Egyptians recognize that zodiac configuration in the sky? Where does that date pyramids? And also, what's the relevance of Cygnus? Because it's not immediately obvious.
Firstly, the Orion correlation theory. Orion represents Osiris, the form that the dead pharaoh takes in death. However, there is a slight problem here because, as you've pointed out, if you put two of those stars in their positions over, let's say, the Great Pyramid, the first pyramid and the second pyramid, then there's an offset. So we looked at other possible theories, and one relates to the constellation of Cygnus, otherwise known as the Northern Cross. We looked at the main stars of Cygnus and found that they matched much better the three pyramids at Giza. So I think that we're looking at either Cygnus being important here, or perhaps Orion and Cygnus together.
I personally think there's nothing quirky or silly about arguing that the temple buildings, the obelisks and so on, speak to the stars. The question is, does that then have something to do with extraterrestrials and superior civilizations? A bit more skeptical. But I think the alignment to the stars is perfectly reasonable. It's not a silly argument. Well, and I think as well, some of the great science fiction writers, Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, they did establish this kind of link between aliens and ancient Egypt quite early on. And it's something that's stuck in our psyche. And the kind of boundary between fact and fiction when it comes to aliens and ancient Egypt has definitely been massively blurred, to put it mildly. I mean, obviously to the frustration of mainstream historians and archaeologists. But I think it's some of those early science fiction works that embedded the idea of the pharaohs, of the pyramids having a kind of extraterrestrial nature. And we've kind of run with that, really. Of course, we didn't have time to touch on Akhenaten, whether or not he was an alien pharaoh. But anyway, it is a discussion that could go on and on. We've exchanged views robustly. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Andrew.
Absolute pleasure.
Sharing our thoughts on ancient Egypt, and the fascination will never end.